Former skateboard champion Kim works low-paying jobs to support herself and her dad after losing her mother in a tragic car accident. A job opportunity at an elite posh servicing company changes her life as she's sent to Austria, where she meets and falls in love with a posh boy named Johnny. In the opening scene, we get to see the UK National Championships where talented people show off their skills in skateboarding. Two presenters come on stage and excitedly talk about the events happening in the competition. One of them mentions Kim Matthews, the protagonist of the story, who tragically stopped skateboarding due to the loss of her mother. Kim's accomplishments were grand. She won the national mixed under-16s when she was just 11 years old, and at 17, she was the London trial champion. The reporters wish her the best and hope that she's doing well, but in reality, she isn't. We get to see her for the first time, at work, being bored out of her mind. Kim is an attractive 19-year-old girl, with lavish brown hair, piercing blue eyes, and rosy cheeks. She works at a fast food restaurant to support her father, who doesn't seem to know how to do anything. Coming back home, Kim sees a pile of unopened bills in the mailbox. She asks her father not to ignore them, but he assures her that he'll figure something out. Her father is unemployed and she promises to ask her boss for a job for him, but finds out that the quota is full. She complains to her coworker how her summertime job had become her full-time job when her coworker suggests she tries applying for posh catering service companies. Kim claims that she can be posh but gets surprised once she goes to the interview. Everyone's name ends in Bella, making them sound more elegant. However, it is their posh manners that make them qualified for the job. Kim struggles when it comes to differentiating the wine glasses and even serving the plates in the right order. After the testing, she gets called into the office where the lady lets her know that she won't be getting the job. Kim doesn't let that slide as she gets real with the lady. She knows that her name doesn't end in Bella, nor is she blonde and posh like the others. But in reality, she is the only one qualified for the real job, which is catering. Kim has experience being a waitress and even knows how to cook properly. The lady isn't bothered by her words because they won't be needing her, but a certain phone call changes it all. She finds out that one of their top chalet girls had broken her leg, so she couldn't be a part of the service, but perhaps the worst news is that no other chalet girl is available. Looking at Kim, the lady calls her back in and asks Kim to take the job. Coming back home, Kim tells her father all about the job, and that is when we find out that she had declined the offer. A big part of her not taking the job is that her father wouldn't be able to take care of himself while she's away for 4 months. Kim vents to her friend the next morning, and her friend sarcastically supports her decision. Realizing that she's stuck doing a low-wage job, Kim decides to take the offer in the end. Fortunately for her, the lady says that no other chalet girl's taken her place, but she will have to get on a plane the next morning. Before packing, Kim goes to the supermarket to buy all the food that her father will need. She turns into a personal chef once she gets home, as she prepares food for her father to last him until she comes back, which is 4 months. Before leaving in the morning, she warns her dad not to eat beans and toast all the time, and to consult the lady she had hired to do health checks on him. She finally arrives in Austria, and coming out of the train station, sees a girl holding her name on a card. The girl's name is Georgie and she is an attractive, tall young lady with blonde hair and a popular girl persona. She's talking on the phone when Kim approaches her, and she is surprised to see Kim in front of her. Georgie drives Kim to the ski resort while Kim looks out the window and can't help but be amazed at the beauty of the mountains. Getting to the ski resort, Georgie sees her friend who is a fellow chalet girl as well. Rolling down the window, she talks to her friend when her friend notices Kim, and gives Georgie a strange look when she finds out that Kim is the new chalet girl. Arriving at the beautiful winter house, Georgie warns Kim about the requirements of the job. She threatens to show her a bad time if she were to embarrass her in front of the family. The Madsons are expected to arrive at 5 p.m. that same day, so Georgie suggests they get to work. Getting into the house, Kim is met with beautiful designs and paintings. In the living room, she takes a remote that controls most of the things in the house, like the fireplace and the blinds. She sees a beautiful hill where people are skiing, so she decides to check it out herself. Unfortunately, she doesn't know how to ski, so she goes back inside after almost getting hit by the skiers. She finally goes into her room where she sees Georgie's bed in a mess. Hearing noises from the balcony, she goes out to see what it is when she hears Georgie and her friend talking bad about her, making fun of her for not being posh, and for not knowing how to ski. While making the beds, Georgie teaches Kim about the 3 golden rules of being a chalet girl. A chalet girl is not allowed to have any friends in the house, and she can go wherever she wants as long as there's breakfast on the table at 8. The 3rd rule is that you can't sleep with your clients unless you like them or they're interested in you. Basically, there's no 3rd rule because it's up to you. They go to the supermarket where they buy a lot of caviar for the guests. Georgie lets Kim know that she will be in the front of the house, while Kim will be working in the back office, which basically means staying in the kitchen. They go to the airport to pick up the guests once they've arrived when Georgie sees Bernhardt. He is the family's all-around ski guide, fixer, and gimp, and the employer of Kim and Georgie. The family finally arrives and Kim nervously asks Georgie how to talk to them. Georgie lies to her as she advises her to give courtesy to the family. Johnny, the son of the wealthy couple, comes to them and hugs Georgie when Kim bows down to him. Confused, he asks her what she's doing and she lies, claiming that she's stretching. She shakes Johnny's hand and realizes how handsome he is. Johnny is a handsome young man with brown hair and brown eyes. He is a posh boy with great manners and sharp features. Right after shaking hands, Johnny's fiancée joins his side and they get to meet her as well. Her name is Chloe and she's also an attractive brunette young woman. Her brother Nigel introduces himself to everyone as well, and he is a rather awkward guy, but attractive as well. He seems to have a crush on Georgie, so when he's around her he doesn't know how to properly speak. Finally, the parents come to greet Kim and Georgie. Richard and Caroline are the complete opposites, as Richard is the more forgiving type, and Caroline is more cold-hearted. Later in the night, the posh family enjoys the dinner that Kim prepares and Georgie serves. Throughout the night, the family doesn't notice Kim, but Johnny helps her out as much as he can. They drink expensive wine and have a play fight with profiterole balls. Kim can't grasp the concept of them playing around with food, and even calls it insane when Johnny walks into the kitchen and claims that sanity is overrated. He takes Georgie to do the famous trick and invites Kim to join them. Coming into the dining room, Kim sees Georgie doing Halk the Herald while everyone cheers her name. Georgie does a trick with her chin when Nigel starts beatboxing out of nowhere. The family takes the party to the hot tub while Kim talks on the phone with her dad. Not being sure of what the situation is, she tells her father that everything is fine and that she's doing well. The next morning, Kim can't wake Georgie up, so she decides to make breakfast herself. Not knowing what to make exactly, she decides that they will have an omelet and caviar for breakfast. Caroline doesn't let the breakfast slide as she gives a snarky comment about it, telling everyone to enjoy their $300 breakfast. The chalet girls usually ski in the afternoon, but Kim finds herself not having anything to do as she doesn't know how to ski. She decides to make something sweet, but Georgie takes the credit for it. Wanting to do something on her own, Kim gets a snowsuit along with a snowboard and decides to teach herself how to ski. She goes to the slope and right as she's about to start, a guy that's coming down the hills falls on top of her. He starts yelling at her for not watching where she's going and she starts apologizing immediately. Despite falling, she tries again and again until she finally gives up. Sitting on the side, she gets approached by the guy who fell on her and he admires her strive. He introduces himself as Mickey, a single guy from Finland, and Kim answers with, "Kim, not interested, from England." He offers to help her learn how to snowboard, and Kim gets instantly better when he reminds her that it's just like skateboarding. They even get on the ropeway together. Mickey spots the poster for the snowboarding competition and asks Kim to join. Kim doesn't believe that she'll make it, but Mickey assures her that she's a great skateboarder, so 3 months will be more than enough to practice and get better. The catch is that the winner gets $25,000, and Kim could use the money to help her situation. Later in the night, it is Johnny's engagement party where he is supposed to propose to his girlfriend. The chalet girls are invited as well, and Caroline reminds Kim that she needs to be dressed properly, which basically means that she needs to wear fancier clothes. Annoyed, Kim goes to Georgie, who gives her some beauty products and something to wear. After getting ready, Kim rushes to the kitchen to take the dessert out before it burns when she sees Johnny in the kitchen. "And like that, she became a swan," says Johnny. "So I used to be an ugly duckling, then," replies Kim. Johnny is very fond of her behavior and finds it rather amusing. Kim takes the cake out of the oven, and that's when Johnny realizes that it's her making the food, and not Georgie. She notices that he's struggling to adjust his bow tie, so she does it for him. Tension can be felt in the air as both of them stand so close to each other. As the party goes on, Kim and Georgie's job is to take care of the food and drinks. At one point, a bottle gets emptied, so Georgie asks Kim to open a new one. Getting a champagne bottle, Kim stares at it and tries to figure out how to open it while holding it close to her face. Caroline stands with Chloe and Johnny, looking at Kim and making fun of her. Johnny notices that the bottle cap is about to come out and the champagne bursts in her face, so he tries to help her, but it's too late as the champagne goes up Kim's nose. Standing outside with a bloody nose, Kim tries to hide her face once Johnny comes out. He lets her know that she can drink as much as she likes because she's already had the headache. Taking the glass from his hand, Kim chugs down the expensive drink without even realizing it. Swallowing the sweet liquor, she compliments its taste and Johnny lets her know that it's expensive. Kim gets disappointed and she even questions what she's doing amongst rich people living in a different reality than hers. Johnny admits to them being aliens and claims that his mother is the scariest of them. Kim agrees and says that his mother is the scariest woman she has ever met. He lets her in on a secret about how his parents met. He claims that his mother is not so scary because when she met his father, he was an air stewardess. The family leaves the next morning and we see them getting their bags into their private jet. Kim helps Johnny with the luggage and he promises her that he will be back in February. While saying goodbye, he goes to hug her, but she takes her hand out, so she accidentally punches him in the stomach, making the situation even more awkward. Caroline is upset at her son, so she scolds him and reminds him that his girlfriend is not going to wait forever for him to propose to her. While there's trouble in paradise on one side, on the other side we can see that Nigel is already in love with Georgie. He asks whether he can post the pictures online and she gives him permission while flirting with him at the same time. Before getting on the plane, Richard hands the girls their tips, and it's more than Kim had ever expected. She calls her father to let him know the good news, and we find out that she had gotten a €200 tip for 1 week. Her father is surprised to hear about that large of a tip and even jokingly questions her job. Kim promises to put the money in the bank so he can withdraw it, and he thanks her for it. He can be seen struggling to defrost his meal, but he doesn't admit that to Kim and even lies about it. In the afternoon, Kim practices snowboarding with Mickey. She struggles to go over small rails and make jumps, but after many trials and errors, she finally succeeds, which makes her qualified for the first stage of the competition. While going down, she gets stopped by another girl, and she lets her know that she's riding on a 16th century beginner board. There is a rental shop Kim can go to and ask for Willie, and the girl recommends that she says Tara had sent her for some additional discount. Going to the rental shop, Kim gets approached by Willie, who tells her that the snowboarding equipment is €40 for the staff, but when she mentions Tara's name, he lowers it to €30. Motivated by the new gear, Kim decides to practice even more, but alone, and falls in love with snowboarding even more. People start noticing her and how good she's gotten since coming to the ski resort. Even Georgie and her friend can't believe that Kim didn't know how to snowboard earlier. Getting successful at snowboarding motivates Kim to get up early and practice, but she gets disappointed once she sees that it's snowing outside. She goes to the slope and the rental shop to check whether anyone's there, but everything is closed. Kim and Georgie sit in the living room, bored out of their mind, when Bernhardt passes them in nothing but Speedos and a rope. He claims that the owners let him use the hot tub and even invite the girls to it. The girls tease him about how they don't have a swimsuit, but it isn't a problem for them to bathe, and he agrees with the idea and even waits for them to come with him. They start laughing in his face, and he thinks it's just their English humor. It snows for the next few days in Austria, and Kim can't seem to continue her practice, so she tries some alternatives. Putting her board on, she jumps and performs tricks on the bed while imagining that she's on a mountain. While sitting in the living room one day, Georgie hears Kim's phone get a notification, so she decides to see herself. She realizes that it's Kim's birthday once she sees the happy birthday photo from her coworker. Kim tries to act oblivious and even doesn't want to do anything for her birthday, but Georgie manages to drag her to the local bar. Everyone they know is there, including Mickey, who joins the party. Shots after beer, the young people get drunk easily and dance all night long. But the party doesn't end there, as they take everyone from the club back to the house and have an after party. The music is blasting as people from the bar fill every floor of the house. Georgie and Kim are very drunk at that point when Georgie gets a crazy idea. They go into the hot tub completely and Mickey decides to go to the snow before coming into the warm hot tub. They look at Kim before they start cheering, "Chill out, chill out, chill out," which basically means that Kim has to do the same thing. Kim starts cheering with them as she gets out of the hot tub when a light flashing from her side stops her in her tracks. Turning to the side, she sees the Madsons in the car, and more specifically Johnny staring right at her self. The party is over and the girls start cleaning the house while Bernhardt checks the house for any damages. Coming back, he lets Johnny know that the coffee table is broken along with the speaker system, and that there's vomit on the yucca plant. Johnny sighs but knows that those things can be replaced. Fear shows on his face once he remembers the expensive painting in the hall. All of them rush to see if there's anything drawn on the painting, and luckily, they find the painting clear. Johnny lets the girls know that the damages will be paid for by extracting a sum from their tips, and snarkily asks Kim to have her birthday party in her own house next time. The girls wake up the next morning and clean the entire house by themselves, as punishment for the bad behavior. After scrubbing and vacuuming, the girls decide to do some snowboarding and skiing with the family. While riding in the gondola, Nigel asks Georgie whether all chalet girls like to have intercourse in gondolas, and she lets him know that they do it all the time. However, they only have 90 seconds, so there's no time for roleplay. Nigel claims that he can go longer than that when Chloe chimes in and stops the conversation because she feels uncomfortable. Changing the subject, Johnny focuses everyone's attention on the fresh tracks of the show. "Ah, the Yeti," he says, and it intrigues Kim. He says that it's just a local guy, but Kim asks how he knows that it's a guy, so they go back and forth while having a playful argument. They finally arrive at the slope and everyone starts skiing immediately. Kim goes down with her snowboard while Johnny rides backward with her, so he can look at her. They come to a rail and Kim stops to see the trick that Johnny will do. He jumps and does a 360 before landing on the snow. Encouraging Kim to do the same trick, he motions with his hands for her to come to him. Chloe watches them in jealousy when she decides to do the unthinkable. Kim tries to jump off the rail, but she sees the accident that she lost her mother to, so she loses her balance and falls. Chloe takes her chance to fall on top of Kim, so she decides to go down the slope and in the direction where Kim is lying. Karma gets to her as she swings off the railroad and falls badly, breaking her back. The ambulance gets there shortly, and they take Chloe. Johnny lets Kim know that he will be back in a couple of weeks to see her before going into the ambulance with Chloe. In the meantime, Kim decides to work on her fear of jumping from the rail. She asks Mickey to help her and he does his best. He jumps off a rail, does a backflip, and falls smoothly on the safety pad. He encourages Kim to try as well, and she tries but sits down as she's scared of trying. Mickey comes to her and lets her know that jumping is easy. It is the landing that's the hard part. Taking her hand, he takes her to the end of the rail and they jump together. After some time, Kim gets comfortable, so the jumps become easier and easier. She decides to take a beer break with Mickey, but seeing Tara gives her a big motivation not to take any breaks, so she asks Mickey to continue. With a sudden wave of confidence, she does the small rails and even decides to go on the big one. Mickey yells at her that it's too soon for her to try that trick, but it's too late as she gets onto the rail and falls badly. Unfortunately, Kim sees the same scene in front of her, which makes her lose control of herself. Spraining her neck, Kim decides not to practice or even join the competition. Georgie can't help but ask her whether she's sure she wants to quit after doing so much for it. But Kim angrily reminds her that she could have saved money instead of wasting it on some expensive equipment. Before storming off, she goes to the bar alone to clear her head. Her father tries to call her, but she doesn't answer his calls. He complains to the care lady that she has been distant, and she tells him that change is good for a human as she hands him bleach so he can clean the apartment himself. He grabs the bleach and decides to also make some changes in his life. Coming back from the bar, Kim sits at home, reading a book, when Mickey comes to visit her. He asks her about the arm and Georgie chimes in, saying that her hand will be fine in a few days. Mickey asks her to come practice with him, but unfortunately, he doesn't change her mind as she simply says that she can't. The Matsons visit again, but this time it is only Richard and Johnny, along with some businessmen, who are rather disgusting and misogynistic. After having breakfast, Richard asks Georgie if she can join them to dish up the lunch they're going to have, but she lies that she has a cold and makes Kim do the job. They go to the mountains by helicopter and ski until the afternoon. When they sit down for lunch, Kim is pouring champagne for the guests when one of them starts a game where they guess Kim's size. Everyone says a size, but Johnny asks Kim not to answer that, and he even defends her against the disgusting comments, saying that she keeps her clothes on for a living. Kim pours champagne into Johnny's glass when she sneaks in with a cheeky comment. The bigger the chat, the smaller the chap. The girls greet the men as they get into the car to leave. Once in the car, Johnny asks his father to stop as he wants to spend more time in the winter house. Getting inside, he sees Kim. She thinks that it's Georgie, so she lets her know that they've gotten a €400 tip. Turning around, she sees Johnny and he thanks her for reminding him that they need to pay back for the damages they had done. He takes Georgie's money as well, but lets Kim know that she'll earn her money back because he wants to hire her as a personal trainer for snowboarding, and even promises €50 an hour. They start going down once Johnny gets on the board, but soon fall together on the snow. They get up and fall again, but this time Kim falls on top of him. They're in their own world and don't even notice Bernhardt looking at them suspiciously. Johnny has used the trick of hiring Kim to teach him how to snowboard, only to get her to snowboard again. He watches with Mickey by his side as Kim performs all the tricks with no problem. They sit on the snow to rest for a bit when Kim sarcastically assumes that Johnny's life is hard. He jokes at first but gets serious with her, proving that he can't do what he wants. He reveals that his father has been saving a place for him on the board since he was only 2, and his mother won't be happy until he marries Chloe, and has 9 children with perfect teeth. He doesn't like that his whole life's been planned out for him, and doesn't want to follow anyone's wishes. Looking at him, she lets him know that his problems are not real problems, and they are just rich kids' excuses. She asks him why he doesn't do anything about it, and he claims that it's not as easy as it sounds. A cheeky smile forms on her face and he asks her what she's thinking about. She quotes her mother's saying, "You've got brains in your head, feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself in any direction you choose." He calls her mother a clever lady and she smiles to herself. Coming back home later in the night, Kim is warned by Georgie about what she's doing. She asks her what she means and Georgie reminds her that the season will end and she will go back to her world, while he goes back to his, and there's nothing that she will be left with. Kim comes closer to her and asks her what world she's talking about. Asking not to judge her by her standards, Kim decides to take a jab at Georgie as well. She reminds her that she'd rather be with a rich idiot like Nigel, instead of Mickey, despite being in love with him. Georgie gets saddened and tries to tell Kim something, but she asks her to stay out of it before heading out for a beer. Willie serves Kim a beer and asks her if she wants to talk about her problems as he can notice that something's bothering her. She doesn't like to talk about it as she decides to pay for the beer and go, but Willie gives her money back as the beer's free. Coming out of the bar, she is greeted by Johnny. She assumes that Georgie has told him everything, but he claims to stay out of it. "Look, Kim, about us," is what he says when Kim tries to leave, but he quickly redeems himself as he mentions the skidboarding. He lets her know that he has booked the helicopter and needs someone to serve him lunch. Stopping in her tracks, she starts laughing and calling him annoying. They take the helicopter to the mountains the next morning, and luckily for them, they're the only ones there. Johnny skis down the mountain while Kim snowboards by his side. They have so much fun and feel free around each other. Taking the gondola to go even higher, they have some more fun while riding the sleigh together. It starts to snow heavily on the mountains, so they have a snow fight. despite it being dangerous to be out in such conditions. They play, run around, roll in, and just enjoy the snow together. While laying on the snow, they share their first kiss. Johnny leans in and gives her a quick peck, and she jokingly pushes him off. They come back to the house, kissing while taking their... Kim takes off her shirt when Johnny says 34B, I knew it, referring to the men that were guessing her a couple of days prior. She laughs and pushes him onto the bed and they make love for the first time. They lay together cuddling and snuggling up to each other. He looks at her intensely when she notices him and asks why he's looking at her. Nothing is all he says before kissing her passionately. They wake up the next morning and take a shower together. When they're walking down the stairs in their robes, Johnny is the first one down, but he stops in his tracks all of a sudden. Looking at where he's looking, Kim is surprised to see Caroline standing in front of them. Don't you have an engagement party you have to go to? Is all it takes for Kim to realize that Johnny had proposed to Chloe before coming back to the winter house and spending time with her. Georgie sits on the bed, apologizing and admitting that she wanted to tell her, but Kim's already packing her bag, ready to go back home. Kim thinks that there had been a way for Georgie to tell her but doesn't understand why she didn't try to. Over in the living room, Johnny is receiving a lecture from Caroline. She reminds him that Kim is only a chalet girl, and girls like her only go for the money. As bizarre as it is, Caroline admits that she wouldn't have minded if they were discreet, as she reveals that it was Bernhardt who told her. She warns her son to stop seeing Kim or she would make it stop. Johnny tries to remind her of her and Richard's love story, but she stops him before he has anything more to say. She claims that Kim is only after one thing, and before she gets to say what it is, Kim comes behind her. She admits that she did come for money and it had been great. As if things weren't as bad as they were, Johnny tries to pay Kim for the 3 hours she spent with him, making it look more than bizarre. Kim leaves in shock and despair while Johnny chases after her, but she doesn't stop and gets to the bus station without turning back. Getting to the train station, she calls her father to let him know that she will be home the next morning. He asks her about the competition and she claims that she was never going to win it. Not wanting to see his daughter give up, her father reminds her that she was the person that never feared or doubted herself about winning. It's what she would have wanted, are the words that change Kim's mind. She goes to the championship immediately and even helps Mickey get there on time. A lot of people have entered the competition, so Kim patiently waits for her turn. Mickey goes before her and goes through all the rails just right, but the same as every year, when he jumps off the big rail, his face plants in the snow. Kim spots Tara backstage and sees her getting some shots. Tara sees her watching and assures her that it is legal. Being the professional that she is, Tara does all the tricks well and even scored over 80 on the final chart. It is finally Kim's turn. She starts confidently going through every rail, but before making the jump off the big rail, she stops at the peak as she sees the car crash again. She goes down the lame road, and her score is only 1 point off the points for qualification. On the phone, she tells her father everything. Out of 20 people qualified, Kim is the 21st, so that makes her the first reserved, having a chance if someone decides to pull out. Kim finds it hard to fall asleep late at night while everyone is deep into their dreams, so she decides to go to the slope. Reaching the top, she is surprised to see Willie there. Laughing, she realizes that Willie is the famous Yeti of the slopes. Putting their snowboards on the ground, they sit down to rest and watch the sunrise. Willie notices that Kim's worried about something, so he asks her whether she wants to talk about it. Not benign at first, she struggles to tell the most tragic story of her life. Gathering the strength, she reveals that her mom, dad, and she were driving in the car on their way home, singing at the top of their voices and laughing about it, when her father had to swerve, but unfortunately he skidded off the road. Her mother was on the side that got hit and she passed away immediately. Kim starts crying and admits that she really misses her mother. Willie rubs her back in support and she apologizes for crying. He asks her to ride down the mountain and tell all of her problems to them because they're very good listeners. Back in England, the Madsons are throwing a party where it's expected for Johnny to reveal that he had proposed to Chloe. Caroline comes by his side and lets him know that there are only 2 more minutes before the announcement. Chloe's brother understands that Johnny doesn't want to marry her, so he advises him to tell the truth before they announce the engagement. Taking Chloe to the side, he asks her how she would feel if they were not to get married. She doesn't take it well as she gets everyone's attention once she screams in Johnny's face. She can't believe that he is ending a 5-year relationship at an engagement party. He admits that she is right about him when she realizes that he is in love with Kim. She admits that she may thank him in a couple of years for not marrying her because of his mother's wishes, but there is anger inside of her because he's leaving her in such a bizarre way. Before walking off, Chloe kicks Johnny in the private area and claims that it's the least he deserves. Johnny escapes through the emergency door as he realizes that his mother is totally oblivious to the events happening. The news spreads fast as George's friend gets a phone call and someone tells her the exciting news. Kim hears the news as well, but she claims that she doesn't care about it. The day of the final championship comes and everyone is more excited than ever. Kim gets to the reserved area and patiently waits her turn. Contestant after contestant, Kim's chances are down to slim as there are only 3 contestants left. She sees Tara getting ready backstage, so she goes to her to wish her good luck. Before taking the shot she needs to ride, Tara thinks about everything and decides not to be a part of the competition. She gives her place to Kim and asks her not to screw it up. Everyone is shocked that someone with such a successful start would pull out of the game, but they let everyone know that Kim will be replacing her. Before riding, she calls her father and tells him to turn on channel 419. Taking a deep breath, Kim goes down the slope once again. This time, she does better on the smaller rails than before, and when she gets to the big one, instead of seeing the car accident, she sees her mother on the side with a poster that says "Go, Kim." Kim does the jump successfully and lands on the ground with no problem, making her score a very high 93. The crowd cheers and Kim can see that she doesn't see all of her loved ones cheering for her back home, like her father, her coworker, and even Johnny's father Richard. Georgie, her friend, and Mickey cheer in excitement for the victory of their friend. They all hug each other when they hear a familiar congratulations behind them. Turning around, Kim sees Johnny in front of her. She admits that he's hurt her a lot and he apologizes for that. He assures her that his relationship with Chloe is over, but she jokingly warns him that things are going to change because she is a global snowboarding megastar. Both of them laugh, lean into each other, and share a passionate kiss. Everybody cheers and even Caroline approves of the relationship as she watches them kiss on the TV. Kim is called on stage where she receives a check for $25,000 and a statue as the best snowboarder of the year. Smiling, she looks at the crowd, her heart full as everyone's cheering her name. It is a great ending to a great story of a wonderfully talented girl who faced terrible tragedies.